Hey y'all, today we're going to do a review on the Moondrop Chus. I know a lot of these are getting a lot of hype, but I want you guys to actually see what you're getting here. So the short version is these are $20 IEMs. They are tuned less of a V shape. They really don't have a super strong bass response. They put vocals and instruments very forward, but they do not handle deep bass and really dynamic music very well. But they are tuned really nice for certain songs. We're going to talk about that. As you can see here, so they have this nice metal casing. This is metal. They come with these tips that are like 15 bucks by themselves. These are called the spring tips. But these tips are, to me, they for one, I've got big ear canals and I do not get a great seal with these. Feels like these are the largest ones and they barely fit me. So if you got really big ear canals, I'd keep that in mind. And it feels like on the bass side, these actually don't do so if anything, this IEM needs more bass. So if you use something like, for another pair of IEMs, so something like one of these, this actually does a lot better on these than the stock tips, in my opinion. So if you got other IEMs around, even cheap ones that have the more bass-centric, kind of more traditional, bigger tips, I'd recommend using those, at least trying them on it. These have been getting a lot of hype, but I like them. I'm not going to get rid of them, but I think the hype is overblown on them. I'm going to show you why here. The build quality on these is really nice. The metal case is nice. The nozzle fits fine. Now you see here, I think lots of people have said theirs have already stopped working. These feel kind of brittle in the way that the cable is connected here, and also see this is already coming off. So if you use this cable and you just hook it up over your ear, it really doesn't have a lot of memory. You see that, how it just wants to connect? So you put it over your ear and it doesn't really want to stay in place. But your other option is these ear hooks that they give you here. And as you can see, it just continually wants to pop out. So for the people acting like this is as good as like $100 IEMs, it's just not the case. This thing it barely wants to stay in there. And it's okay, but as you can imagine, when this is up over your ear, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world. I got the version that has the built-in microphone on it, which seems to work fine. I'm not going to do any noise samples, but I'll just tell you, if you want to use it with a microphone, you want to do phone calls with it, it's crystal clear, it's just fine. And then you've got your plus and minus here. It's tactile, as I'm sure you can hear there. It's not the best. It's kind of hard to click it, but it does the job and it's fine. You also get a bag in the case, but I don't think that's very important. One of the things that I don't love about it too, like I said with the cable, is that this is all built in and it feels like it'd be prone to break. So I think this will last a long time if I baby it, but I don't think this feels like the kind of thing, if you just roll this up and throw it in your pocket over and over again, I'm pretty sure it's gonna break pretty fast. In terms of how it sounds, people say that these are tuned amazingly, they sound great. To me, I almost feel like that's code for, with the right music, they sound great, but they really can't handle everything. So if you try to listen to EDM or something like that with these are just gonna fall apart. Like the bass is basically, like it doesn't give you any kind of depth and definition to the bass. If you have a really heavy bass track, you're not going to get any kind of sub bass. You get no impact or thump whatsoever. But if you're listening to music where the bass is correct in the sense that you just want to be able to tell that there's bass there, but you don't need to feel bass impact, then it does just fine. If you wanted to listen to something that has very deep bass impact, it's going to actually cause the driver basically to fall apart. But say if you're listening to something that's kind of lighter, like say you're listening to Grateful Dead with something with acoustic and a little bit of bass guitar in it, whatever, then that kind of thing will be fine. So anything that you have which is not super dynamic, like if you listen to like a movie soundtrack or something on these would fall apart. But if you just listen to stuff that's like vocalists, like some light pop kind of stuff, if you listen to acoustic and voice, these can actually be really beautiful, but the issue is that you have to be right in the pocket for these to work. If it's got too much bass, it does not sound good. It starts to fall apart and kind of sounds like a splat instead of like a really good bass. Also, if the singer is too shouty and they really hit a high register, it almost, I mean, it sounds like somebody like shouting, like, whenever somebody shout and they shout to the point where their voice like breaks up and it doesn't quite hold, it kind of sounds like that. But if somebody's right in the pocket, these can sound really good, just about as good as anything. I mean, if I was just listening to vocalists, I might be happy with just listening to anything. But the issue is that I want to be able to listen to whatever I want. These don't sound great for everything. So I'm going to talk to you about some alternatives here that I think are better headphones in general. I will say, so these have very good vocal clarity, so you can hear all the details. It sounds very, it puts the vocals front and center, and it sounds very good in that way. But I'll give you some alternatives here that are good for, better at different things, or maybe more well-rounded. So again, you see these cables and how it's just kind of flopping up in the air and it doesn't want to stay anywhere. It's surprising because Moondrop also came out with these a while ago. These are the corks. I already took the tips off, so don't mind that. But you see how small these are? So these, they're clearly labeled black and red, so you can just pop them in your ears. You know exactly, red is right. You pop these in your ears. They do not need to be looped over your ears like the Chu do, and they give you they're very neutral-ish, but they have a warm, easy to listen to vocal tone. It doesn't give you as much resolution and detail and clarity as the Chus do, but they're easier to listen to. And as you can see here, how these just roll up, like these are the kind of things where you just need something to jump on the bus, or you just always want to have something around. Like, you just take these. I got these with the microphone too. You see, I just take these and I could put these in my pocket. These cost like $13, and these are way better to have as just like, I think, a daily throw them in your pocket kind of option. Where these just kind of feel brittle and like they're, like they could fall apart at any time. So I just kind of keep that in mind. These are so overhyped, and they're cool in their own way, but they're not the end-all be-all IEM option. They definitely have their downsides with them. So if you want to go up in the food chain a little bit too, if you can pay just a little bit more money, I'll give you another option here. So these are the Tripowin Leas. These are, I don't know if these are resin or metal, but these feel really well constructed. These are just not, I use these to fall asleep with. So these are like $25 if you buy them on Linsole. They do come with this crappy cable though. This cable probably looks okay at a glance, but basically when you try to put this in your ears, this just like, it's like trying to use a coat hanger over your ears or something. Like it doesn't want to stay at all. So you basically have to, I mean, you don't have to. If you don't mind it popping all over the place, it sounds fine, but it does not stick very well over your ears. So I replaced the cable on it. So these are like $25, and I'll put a link to these as well. These are $13 replacement cables for them. Now these could be used in any 2-pin, so wouldn't just have to use them for these. These are nice. I'll probably do a separate review, just a quick one on this eventually, but these are nice. They go over your ears. They feel fine. They're a little plasticky, but they're fine. They don't feel cheap and cheesy. They have a microphone built into them, and I think I paid like $13 for them. So yeah, you see it's got this connector here. Do your pause and everything with it. So, but that would bring, so this is like a $25 set, where the Chu is about a $20 set. So that brings it up to about 40. But if you have any other 2-pin cables, you could just buy this for 25. I think this is a way better set of IEM. So I use this to sleep with. You see how it's flat here? So you can basically lay your ear straight down on a pillow, and it works. I mean, nothing's perfect that way, but this is pretty comfortable if you're just kind of turning your head back and forth. It works for that. It has a really pleasant, like, it's very easy to listen to. Like, it has a nice light kind of touch, but it has just enough boost in the treble and the bass to make it kind of lively and interesting. So it's really good to kind of fall asleep to, where you're not needing a ton of energy, but you don't want it so boring that you don't care about the music. These are a great option. Like I said, if you already have a pair of IEMs with 2-pin, you can swap those out for these anytime that you want to use them, and they're 25 versus 20 for the Chu, and I feel like these are a lot better value. And you can always start off with just buying them with the included cable like this that I have, and then later on changing it, which is what I did here. I used these for a while. It was just kind of annoying. They sounded fine, but eventually I replaced them with these because I love the IEMs, but I didn't love the cable, so I just bought a new cable to replace it. But you could use anything you want to replace it if you already have a cable laying around. Another pair that people are going to talk about in relationship to the Chus are the Moondrop Arias. So this is the Aria. You see you've got a very similar kind of look and feel to it. These are a little bit smaller. I heard a review where they were basically saying, hey, these are just as good as the Aria, they're just tuned a little bit differently. I think that's crazy. So the Chus can do a very specific thing. They can do, hey, I've got my vocals and you've got some polite music and it sounds tonally really good for that. But if you get too complicated, you throw a movie soundtrack at me, or EDM, or even somebody who sings really loudly, or there's different things going on, I'm gonna fall apart. I need very polite music for it to work correctly. Where the Aria sounds good for just about anything. Now it's got a way more pronounced bass on it. The vocals are probably not as good in some songs, but they also won't fall apart in the same way that the Chus do on some music. So they will give you a better experience for every song, rather than just having some songs that work with them. Also, the bass is not even comparable. Like, these give you deep, rich, really satisfying sub bass, where the Chu basically doesn't give you any of that. And the sound stage, I think in general, is better, although the Chus, the way that they're tuned, they give you on some songs, they give you a sense of airiness, which is really nice, but it almost seems like at the expense of giving you almost too much shoutiness in the upper mids at points, so it kind of ruins the whole appeal of it. And as you can see here, you also have your 2-pin cable, so you can replace this where you can't on the Chu. So for those that are Aria fans, like, oh, should I just downgrade? Or, oh man, I wish these are not. I mean, just look at it. You've got this cable, and this, it's much bigger, it's nicer, it's got the cable. This is got this built-in cable, and this crappy thing that keeps trying to fall apart on you, and if you don't use it, it just feels like this cheap piece of plastic that's over your ear. And the spring tips, which are supposed to be so awesome, but I didn't really love. I don't see what the big deal is with them, and the integrated cable that you can never replace. So the Arias are really nice. Now I will say, if you're getting up to where you want to spend this much and you want to buy a set of Arias, I would recommend the T3 Plus instead. So now you're getting up to like the $70 or $80 range. But as you can see, I don't know if you can tell here, but so the Arias have this weird like built-in ear hook thing that I think they're the only set that I have that has this kind of setup. It's like this built-in ear tip. It's got a proclivity to lose its paint. I haven't had the issue, but I really baby these. But there is, if you really zoom in, you can see where it's lost some of the paint. And it's very easy to listen to, but that's at the expense of the fact that it has a treble roll-off on the high end. So some instruments that you want to hear, say it's like cymbal strikes or things like that, they just kind of fade in the background and barely exist. And it can be kind of annoying, and it takes a little bit of the fun out of listening to some music, because I feel like this is like the perfect, consumer IEM, and that it's like your first step towards hi-fi. Like, you get really satisfying bass, you get very clear vocals, but anything that is on the higher registers that could possibly be considered a little sizzling, it just takes it away altogether, so that you barely even hear it. So there's some instruments that you barely can even hear with the Arias, where with the TinHiFi T3 Plus, you've got this kind of resin, like it feels really, it's a little bit lighter, but to me it feels like it's gonna last longer. It's just kind of built, it's this plastic, but it's this kind of resin. I mean, they look really nice. As you can see, it's not gonna be paint that's gonna wear off. I took the tip off one, but you can see I just used these tips with them. The cable's way nicer. It's not this, you see this, it's like this nylon, kind of almost like rope, which is kind of weird. This is more of a standard IM cable, which is really, I really enjoy it. Like, it just feels better in the hand and I like it more. And the only thing I feel like you lose with the T3 Plus here is you lose a little bit of sub bass, but you still get a really satisfying bass response. You still get really good mids on it. But what you don't get is that treble roll off. So you get a lot more detail on the high end. You lose a little bit of soundstage, but I think all around for all music, this is probably better. If all you listen to is hip hop and you know, or EDM or whatever, the Arias will probably do a great job for you. But I still think at some point you're gonna realize, oh man, I'm kind of missing some of my, you know, the higher register sounds. And for me, that got annoying, but I think the T3 Plus basically gives that to you without having to make much sacrifices at all with other stuff. You lose just a tiny bit of sub bass, I feel like, but I think you get even stronger mid bass out of this, and it's just a better all-around set of earphones. Now, if you need to keep it cheap and you want to do something that's underneath, you know, that $20 range, these are the CCA CRAs. I think these are, so the only negative to these is that in the, so you get incredible detail, like you get better detail out of these in terms of being able to hear little things than you do out of the Aria or the T3 Plus. What you lose is because of the way that these are made with a super thin, I think they call it like a thin diaphragm driver in it, that these are incredibly quick and detailed, but they lose a little bit of note weight. So you don't get quite the lushness in the every note, but you get incredible detail. Like if you listen to, like, say, metal or something where you need a ton of detail, a ton of different things are going on, and you don't want something to fall apart while it's listening to it, but you don't have a lot of money, these are an excellent choice. The one negative is that in the treble, they get a little hot, so they can be a little bit fatiguing, but you can always EQ that down a little bit if you need to. And with these, you get excellent sub bass response, and still you get very good treble clarity. So if you listen to more laid back music, the Chus might be the way to go. But like, say if you're talking like you listen to metal or you listen to anything that's kind of complicated and fast and has a lot of different dynamics going on, these are a lot better option. And I feel like you know, because the Chus aren't even perfect. As soon as they get into the higher mid-range, they start getting a little shouty anyway. So you're not really losing much with these, but you're gaining a ton in the sense of being able to hear much better detail, and you get much better bass response. So I still think the CCA CRAs are the ones to go with for most people if you have just about $20 to go with. So, and obviously you can spend more above that. I'll probably do some reviews on stuff that are $100, $150. There's some better options out that way as well, but this just kind of gives you an idea of kind of what your options are at the different price points. I think the Chus are nice to have in my collection, but if they were the only IMs I had, I think I'd be disappointed, and I think they're kind of limited in what they can do. So I appreciate you guys watching. Please like and subscribe, and feel free to write any questions that you have in the comment section. I'd love to talk to you guys about your opinions on these. Thank you.